So, the Nightmare Animatronics, what exactly are they? Are they real? Like, do they use sound illusion discs to disguise their appearance in these nightmarish forms? Do they use some kind of, like, hallucination gas to also disguise the way that they normally appear? Or are they, like, some kind of just hallucination or wild nightmare in the head of a dying child after having gotten chomped by a certain Fredbear?
What exactly are you?
That is what we're here to discuss in today's video, hence the discussion video on Nightmare Animatronics. So, to kind of just go over exactly what's going to happen in this video real quick, and then we'll actually get into things, because I like to keep these intros relatively brief. So, basically, a few points I want to cover are talking about why I think that the Nightmare Animatronics are both real, quote unquote, and just in the head of crying child. So kind of like the best of both worlds, I guess you could say. And I'll cover a couple different points that have to do with other Nightmare Animatronics and other things in FNAF 4, because this video kind of turned into a like FNAF 4 analysis rather than just specifically the Nightmare Animatronics. So do keep that in mind. As I was working on this, it kind of shifted into that. So it's still going to be about the Nightmare Animatronics, just a couple different other topics thrown in there as well. But anyway, since that's done, let's just jump right on into this. So I'll start with talking about why I think the Nightmare Animatronics are in the head of crying child, both as he is dying in the hospital as well as outside of that, because I think that he has had these illusions, these like creepy nightmare things before, and I think the game FNAF 4 has showed us this before. So we'll get right into that, but before we do, I'd really appreciate it if you guys went down and left a like on the video and subscribed while you were down there. Just really appreciate that. All right, anyway, we'll get right into this and we'll start with talking about that. Alright, so this is my like 6th take trying to record this stinking video, so I'm not holding back anymore. I'm just going to be talking. It's going to be a little bit rambly, a little bit ranty, and just bear with me, alright? I've recorded this enough. We're just going to go for it. So I'm going to kind of tone down the crying child psychology element of it. I think I can make that its own video, and I'm going to talk specifically about what the video is supposed to be about. So the Nightmare Animatronics in FNAF 4 are all in the head of crying child as he is dying in the hospital after having gotten chomped by Fredbear. So FNAF 4 is just that, through various details that we see throughout the game, right, that kind of indicate that this is most likely not happening in real life. However, I think that it did happen in real life to crying child, in that he would get these nightmares before he got chomped by Fredbear. And I think that it can play into an interesting best of both worlds kind of an element as to that they are real and not real. And I'm going to call this theory best of both worlds theory because it's the best of both worlds. It's FNAF, and the Nightmare Animatronics are real and fake. So the idea that I had for why they are fake but can also lead into them being real is that crying child would have these nightmares for a while. Like, he's had them for a while. He'd have them at night. He'd have them whenever. And like I said, I'm going to do a crying child FNAF 4 psychology video at a different date. But for right now, just bear with me and take the idea that crying child has these imagination, hallucination, nightmares on his own time, right? Like, outside of FNAF 4. So what I imagine happens is that he has these nightmares, and who else to talk to about these scary events that he just went through at night than his good pal psychic friend Fredbear, which we know William is on the other end of. So what I imagine happens is that crying child would go to bed, have these terrible nightmares, whether they're actual nightmares or whether he's doing some sort of like sleepwalking or something like that, where he's also interacting with stuff like in his room. So I imagine that he has these nightmares, he talks to William, and he's like, but he thinks it's a psychic friend Fredbear. So he's like, oh, Fredbear, you know, last night I had these terrible nightmares. Oh, creepy looking Bonnie was coming through my left hallway and he was trying to kill me, and I had to close the door in order to keep him out. And William would get all this in, and I'm somebody who thinks William in the FNAF 4 era was still at least a half decent human being. I know lore's kind of trying to change that, but I'm still standing strong. You know, you're not going to move me from my pedestal. FNAF 4 is perfect, and William was still at least a decent guy back then. So he was still a decent father, and he's like, hey, kiddo, that really sucks, you know, but tomorrow's another day, right? And he's trying to be at least somewhat nice, but he's busy with his work, so he is William Afton after all. He doesn't have all the time in the world to spend with his kids because he's not that great of a dude, but he's at least not a horrible human being yet. But he would talk to Crying Child through this, and Crying Child would describe what he saw in his nightmare. So he'd be like, okay, well, Nightmare Freddy, he was like coming up through the bed, and you know those little toy Freddys that you created, like the little toys that have the speakers in them and they can talk to you? Yeah, well, Freddy had a bunch of those and they were showing up on my bed, and they all like twisted and creepy and had these big teeth. And he's describing this to William, who's like keeping this all in mind. You know, he's thinking about all this, he's taking this all, and maybe he's writing it down, stuff like that, but he's just processing this information to help Crying Child, I guess, bear through the days, if you want to say that. So he's doing this, and then eventually Michael Afton goes a little too far. You know, one thing leads to another. Fredbear's getting a smooch, and the next thing you know, there's a kid getting his head chomped. So pretty bad stuff there. I don't know where I was going with that, but so Crying Child gets chomped, and now Crying Child, while he's dying, has these nightmares. And Michael Afton, of course, is always like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to, oh, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, dude, look, it was too late, okay? I don't like Michael Afton. I'm not a Michael Afton supporter. I hate Michael Afton because he killed Crying Child. Anyway, pull it back a little bit. So Michael Afton, you know, apologizes, whatever. And then we get William, who's talking to Crying Child, and he's like, look, you know, I'm so sorry this happened, blah, 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 blah. I will put you back together, right? And then that's when he gets into his crazy fanatic phase of creating Funtime animatronics and Remnant, and he goes into his mad scientist mode in order to try to bring Crying Child back. And I almost feel like that makes a bit more sense lore-wise, and I'll probably bring this up in my timeline video. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Make sure to go vote on my poll about that. But anyway, so William Afton is like, all right, well, I'm going to do all this stuff to get Crying Child back, but I'm also pissed off at Michael Afton because it's William. And, you know, he's a very angry man, if you want to put it lightly. So he's, I guess, a very vengeful man. That's a good way to put it. He's a very vengeful man. And who else to take his vengeance out on than the person who caused Crying Child to die, Michael Afton. And that's where we move into where these once nightmares that Crying Child experienced because of his brother now move into real nightmares that are forced upon Michael by William in order to get his vengeance. So now we move into where these nightmares become reality. So at some point after Crying Child's death, and after the creation of the Funtimes, potentially even after Elizabeth's death, William goes on to develop things such as the sound illusion discs and the hallucination gas. And so what William ends up doing is he ends up turning his house into some kind of wacky observation lab kind of a thing. So he basically, in my mind, moves Michael Afton into Crying Child's old room, which is, you know, the one from FNAF 4. And he sets up cameras in there, and then sets up a camera in the plush trap area, right? So that you kind of get the events of FNAF 4, which would also be something that Michael Afton experiences. And I know that MatPat in his timeline from a few years back kind of came up with a similar idea, not a similar idea, but basically it was like Crying Child and Michael Afton experienced the nightmares. But I think he didn't. To be honest, I like Matt Pat, but I think he did a not also great job of explaining it, because he kind of just explained FNAF 4 twice without any like connection. And I think with at least mine, I'm sure there's a lot of like holes in my theory, you know, because like I'm not a super crazy theorist guy, but I think at least mine connects the two. So Michael Afton, now living in Crying Child's room, is forced to experience these same nightmares that he basically gave Crying Child by scaring him all the time and making him scared of the animatronics. So William creates these like blank slate fun times, aka a like game equivalent to the Twisted Ones, like how the Twisted Ones are basically a book equivalent of the nightmares. So William creates these, gives them sound illusion discs, potentially even puts in some hallucination gas, some Poppy Playtime sleepy gas in there, and basically causes Michael Afton to have these nightmares, except that they are real. So these animatronics are actually walking around the house and scaring Michael. Obviously they don't kill him, and I think William would do that intentionally to be like, hey, I'm not gonna kill him, right? Like he killed the Crying Child, but I'm not gonna kill Michael. But he torments him a lot, scares him a lot, all that kind of stuff. And so now that's how Michael knows what the nightmares look like, because he draws Nightmare Fredbear in the survival logbook, right? He draws them, and that's the big question about like, how does Michael know what these look like if Crying Child is the one that experienced the nightmares, right? And I think this kind of explains it. William uses the nightmares against Michael as a sort of revenge, and that's why Michael goes out to find where William is. Now, I know, like, in his big speech at the end of Sister Location, he's like, oh, you know, Father, it is me, Michael. You know, it was right where you told me it would be. And I do imagine that as, like, William... I'm not really going to get into this, but I imagine that even though as much as Michael was tormented by William, I feel like he didn't know all that much until William went missing, got spring locked. He got boarded up in the back room, and Michael finds the sister location, I guess. And so once he kind of puts all the pieces together, he realizes what happened, and that's where he's more like vengeful, and he's like, I'm going to come find you, and he's more angry, and that's where he gets his sort of vengeance to take out on William. And I think it gives it a bit more personality, because I mean, going back to Matt Pat, he's like my, you know, like game theory is like the main FNAF theory kind of channel, but I remember in his theory he was kind of like, Michael Afton discovers all the horrible crimes that William did, and that's what gets him all angry. And while it does put Michael as like a holy saint trying to do what's right, and he's a great old person, I'm gonna have to disagree with him on that. I am a very much Michael Afton not a great guy. I mean, he shoved somebody's head into a robot, and I'm sure he was sorry, and I know he's trying to do what's right by stopping William. But I think that he's actually going after William because of what happened to him and what happened to like Elizabeth and everybody else, right? It's sort of a combo wombo, if you will. He's not just targeting William because of what William did, but also because of the nightmares that he was put through as a teen, because he'd be a teen around then. So I guess deviating a little bit from the nightmares, but that's sort of my general idea. So the nightmares are real. They would come out at night, and they would be these, basically the Twisted Ones. Basically just picture the Twisted Ones, except within the FNAF 4 house. That's all you really have to picture. So that's kind of it, to be honest. A little bit of a shorter one. This probably could have easily been a quick take, but I felt it was fair to give this the discussion video treatment. And there are still a few other points that I do want to cover, and that'll be sort of like the final section before we get into the summary. So this is kind of it for the main theory, and then there's a few more points that I want to talk about. All right, so a few final closing thoughts. for the video that pertained to Nightmare Animatronics or FNAF 4 as a whole, because this theory did kind of end up being a more FNAF 4 theory rather than a specific Nightmare Animatronics theory. And I apologize if that is a bit misleading. I didn't mean to. I did intend this to be a full-on Nightmare Animatronic video, but I had too many good theories, not theory, I guess theory ideas that came up, and that kind of changed the whole idea of the video. But anyway, these couple points I wanted to talk about. So for starters, if you want my full thoughts on FNAF 4, I have a whole FNAF 4 like review video, so I would just recommend checking that one out if you want my like full thoughts on the story, what the animatronics look like, stuff like that. So go check that one out if you want to. And a couple other points, I do intend on making a FNAF 4 theory video where I'll basically cover a few different points that I covered in this video, as well as talking about a couple other points that pertain to FNAF 4 and even beyond. So that'll be an idea that'll come up at some point. And next week, for my actual quick take video, I intend to do an entire theory on Nightmarion and where they are in the games, why they're an actual entity and not just some nightmare animatronic or an actual like nightmare in Crying Child's head, why I think Nightmarion is an actual character and is still around even into the Security Breach era, where I think I have a couple cool ideas that could connect to some pretty interesting theories. So Nightmarion not in this video because they're going to get their own video, and that's kind of gonna be it. I know I didn't really cover the Nightmare animatronics like specifically, like, oh well, Bonnie looks the way he does because of this or whatever, but I think it still kind of got the point across of the fact that the Nightmare animatronics are real and fake. I just felt I didn't really need to specify like, well, you see Fredbear looks the way he does and he's got the second mouth because of whatever. Like, I just felt like it didn't pertain to the theories that I had for the video. So again, apologies if it was like not exactly what you wanted. I'm sorry, I guess. I don't really know what else to say, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. And we're gonna be moving into the summary section of the video. So the summary section is going to kind of clarify some things, like if you didn't fully understand what I was rambling about, because that's kind of what these videos are. These videos are basically me sitting down and recording multiple takes of a different section and just talking. I don't have a script. I don't do any of that sort of stuff. I just sit here and I talk. So the summary section is kind of going to be to clarify things up a bit, smooth things over, in a bit of a fun way, because there's voice acting in these summaries. So, and it's voice acting from yours truly. It's not some like text to speech. It's me. You know, I do the voice acting. So I hope you guys enjoy it. It should be a bit of a fun one. I honestly don't know what it's going to be yet as of recording this, but it should be a pretty fun one. And I hope you enjoy. And I'll catch you on the flip side. Psychic friend Fredbear. Oh, you'd never believe the night I had. I had such terrible nightmares again. You wouldn't even believe it. Oh yeah, really? What kind of nightmares did you have? Oh, I had these crazy. It was crazy. Bonnie was like this. He had huge teeth and a gaping hole in his chest. And he was walking through the left hallway. I had to close the door to stop him. Chica was kind of a similar situation. She was coming down the right hallway, and she had her cupcake. They were both scary. Oh, really? The animatronics were hunting you down? Oh, that doesn't sound too good. Yeah, and Foxy was hiding in the closet, kind of like how Michael does when he's trying to scare me. And then Freddy was like the monster under the bed. He was hiding under the bed, and it was like super scary. And I'm just so glad that you're here to comfort me. Oh yeah, you know, it sounded really bad. You know, well, you know, as I always say, as me, William Afton, always says, tomorrow is another day. Michael will pay for what he's done to me. He killed Crying Child, and I will not stand for it. If he made Crying Child have such terrible nightmares at night, it's time for him to face the nightmares himself. If I just add a little bit of this and a little bit of that, you do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. I made myself a sound illusion disc. And with the power of the Funtime animatronics, and because I got the remnant from the future animatronics and a theory that I made in a different video, then I now have the ability to create the nightmare animatronics in the flesh. They will torment Michael and make him pay for what he has done to me and Crying Child. And also, I will put Crying Child back together at some point, despite the fact that I never do. Well, I hope you enjoyed that kind of fun summary with some voice acting from yours truly. And we'll kind of get into the end of the video here. So again, apologies if this wasn't everything you were hoping it would be. I still hope you had fun with the video and that you at least understood the theory points that I was trying to talk about. Because these videos can become a bit rambly, there's no script. These are all just me sitting down and recording. Never one take. These take a while to come up with good ideas for. Half the time I start a video and then like 30 seconds in, I'm like, oh man, this sucks, and I stop it. But I hope you guys enjoyed it anyway and at least understood what I was talking about. But as we wrap things up, one thing to talk about is my topic poll that's going to be up on my community tab. Go check it out. It should be live after this video goes up, and go vote on what you want me to cover next. I should have like a game review. You guys can vote on if you want me to do a FNAF timeline, seeing as, you know, most FNAF theory people make a timeline. I've been thinking about it, so if you guys want me to do a timeline video, you can vote on that one. Or a fun option that I have is potentially the 4th part of my problems with FNAF series, and that is going to be why FNAF is having a villain problem. I think it's going to be a fun one. We'll talk about different villains like the Mimic and Vanny and why they are kind of falling flat compared to William Afton. So go vote on either of those options, and there's always like a vote on an other, so like leave a comment if you want to, but go vote on that tab, community poll tab thing. And yeah, with that, we'll do our shameless plugs as per usual. My Instagram is linked down below, so go check that out if you want to, and my channel membership is also down there, so go check out that and become a channel member if you want to. There's some fun perks like behind the scenes stuff. I want to start doing some more fun like unedited videos or content, stuff like that. So that'll be one of the perks that should be starting to come up at some point soon when I actually get enough content to do that. But another perk that you get for being a channel member is a shout out in every video. So here is the shout out for my current channel members. Thank you guys for being my members. I really do appreciate it. And here is your shout out. And yeah, with that, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And for your question of the day, what did you think about my theories? I'm calling it like the best of both worlds theories because it kind of covers the fact that FNAF 4 can be both Crying Child and Michael Afton, which people tend to be like it can only be one or the other. Obviously, best of both worlds means it's both. So what did you guys think about it? Comment that down below if you made it this far in the video. And with that, I will see you in tonight's live stream. Goodbye.